Welcome to another edition of Bear Down with Brian Jeffries. That would be me. The gentleman next door is Augie Busch, head swimming and diving coach at the University of Arizona. I want to say his third year as head coach, but he's really been part of the program since conception, I think. Can we say that? I mean, it's been part of his life. Really,
right.
It has been.
That's true.
Augie, how's everybody? How's family, assistant coaches, your student athletes? Everybody doing well?
Everybody's doing great. Thanks for asking. Speaking of the conception, I talk to my dad almost daily. I play golf with him once or twice a week, and we continue to talk about swimming and everything about swimming. And he's still a part of the program, sort of in an indirect way. He's very connected. Obviously, he and I share a lot. He shares a lot of his insight, and he still has a lot of wisdom as it pertains to the sport and lots of different topics on sports and athletics in general. So he's doing great. The family's doing great. My assistant coaches, who I haven't seen in many weeks, and obviously my team, who I haven't seen in many weeks. We actually just topped off our weekly Zoom call. Everybody's going stir crazy, as you can imagine. Everybody, I don't think anybody will take the sport for granted ever again. It can be a very taxing, exhausting sport. And sometimes when you're in the middle of hard training, getting up at 5 o'clock and jumping in a wet pool or jumping in a cold pool is, people they never would have imagined they would miss something like that as much as they are right now. But they miss that. They miss the structure that it gives them, the routine that it gives them, the mental health, and being able to sort of kind of be in their own water world during those 2 hours. So there's a lot of people missing it. I'm trying to encourage that type of appreciation towards it. You don't know what you got till it's gone, right? And that's kind of what we're experiencing right now. And coaches too, we really miss each other, the camaraderie of being on the pool deck together. And obviously the team keeps you young as a coach. Any college coach will tell you that that's one of the beauties of our profession is you get to be around young people, and young people give you perspective. They give you energy. They give you youth. And so we really miss being around that.
Outstanding. So let's go back to the unfortunate end of the season. Your teams had been at the Pac-12 championships. The men had their best finish in 24 years. Several of your women had set personal highs. Where was everybody headed at that point when unfortunately the season ended too early?
Well, we feel like both teams were headed towards a great NCAA championships. Our women didn't have the depth that our men had this year, but we got some of our key guns going in a really good direction at conference. And then the men's, what a week the men's week was. I mean, we were, you mentioned the best finish in, 2.5 decades. We were, really hoping for the chance to get into the top 10 again at NCAAs. And I thought that was conservative, but we moved forward, and those goals we're getting better. I think both teams are going to be significantly better next year, including our men. I think we lost a couple of key pieces, especially with Jorge and Thomas leaving, but we've got some really, really great returners, some really solid freshmen coming in. Chrissy Parham's son being one of them. I'm sure you recognize that name. And then we just got a really great transfer that signed last week, who's going to be an immediate impact on relays. So our women and our men should be reloaded and ready for action next year.
The administration stepped in and did something for your program that I know is a big boost, and that was the remodeling of the Hillenbrand Aquatic Center, now making it one of the premier facilities in college sports. What in particular, when the construction took place and you guys were away from that pool for a while, but what has it done now? What will it do in the future for your program?
It gives us space that very, very few other programs have. When I say space, I mean lane space. We've got 35 lanes. So you do the math, we've got 45, 50 swimmers. That means, you got 2 per lane. which means you're not circle swimming, which means you can really, really individualize, customize training for individual athletes or specific event-specific groups. So the space is huge. Both pools are very fast. The way the dual meets can be set up now, racing between bulkheads in the middle of the long course pool, as opposed to being at the west end of the pool, kind of racing between, concrete walls. So it's a faster pool bouncing off the bulkheads. The main grandstands, with the blue awning, those are finally sort of center stage for competition, as opposed to just being, you remember, just being not even on the competition course. Mm-hmm. So it's a more spectator friendly facility now. The diving facility, that Mike Kasser built, 10, 12 years ago is still absolutely state of the art. And we've really increased the dryland capacity in that area too. So lane space, better, faster pool. It's deeper. We're bouncing off of bulkheads when we're racing now. More spectator friendly. The ability to go long course meters, short course yards, and short course meters at the same time. I can't think of another facility that can do that at the same time. We can do it at the same time. It's easy to switch from long course to short course. When it's all short course, we have 24 lanes of short course yards. That alone accommodates the whole team with their own side of the lane. So awesome improvements, and not to mention, the graphics, things like that. Still need to work on the record boards, but hopefully by the fall those will sort of be polished up. But wow, we've become, outside of maybe Stanford, the best outdoor college facility in the country, bar none.
Now, will this allow, if my memory serves me right, the chance now to host some championship events?
We're hoping that something like, we'll never be able to host a college championship event because it's outdoors. So Pac-12 conference or NCAA championships, they would never take the risk. And I agree with them. They would never offer that to an outdoor bid. You just never know. In mid-March, chances are it's going to be nice here, but it could be cold. It could be rainy. And you've got, something that people have worked 12 months towards. You don't want weather adversity to come into the mix, which is kind of why we're relegated, if you will, to there's one indoor pool on the West Coast that really has the capacity and is up to the standards to host the Pac-12s, and that's in Federal Way. And there used to be one in Long Beach, and we kind of flip-flop back and forth. And I really miss being able to go to Long Beach and not going all the way up to Federal Way, but at least we have an option on the West Coast. And then the NCAA bids bounce, there's 8 to 10 schools now that have, good enough natatoriums to host. Whereas, back in the 90s when my dad was the head coach here, it was Texas, it was Indianapolis, and maybe every now and then it was another place. So unfortunately, we won't be able to host college championships. However, we do have a vision for things like Masters Nationals, or, we've already hosted, age group senior state meets, but something like a Masters Nationals would pump in millions of dollars into the local Tucson economy. And I think that would be goal number one in terms of, we need some more seating at this point. So that would have to happen before we could pull that off. But something like a Masters Nationals, or maybe even a Summer Junior Nationals someday. When it's 100 degrees, you're not going to get a lot of coaches that are sort of agreeing on that. But San Antonio's hosted it a few years ago. It was really hot there. Something like a Masters Winter Nationals or a Masters Spring Nationals, I think would be a win-win for our facility, for the university, for the economy. You've got Masters swimmers that want to come in and spare no expense to, unlike parents bringing their little 8 to 10-year-olds in. Masters swimmers come and they stay in the nicest hotels. They're eating out for lunch, for dinner, for breakfast. So that's kind of our number one goal in terms of what you're asking.
Okay, that sounds exciting. You mentioned the swimmers who, of course, build towards championships. Unfortunately, the Summer Olympic Games have been postponed. Take us through an athlete who has been training for the Olympics, and what their regiment's going to be like now, having with the postponement and having now to get ready, hopefully for sometime in 2021.
Right. Well, it's a huge challenge now because there's very few swimmers, including national team level swimmers, who have access to pools right now. I saw an interview with Katie Ledecky a couple weeks ago on CNN. She's just swimming in a backyard pool here and there. Leah Smith, Mac Reavers, 2 Olympic gold medalists that train in our stable, if you will. They're displaced right now. They don't have a place to train. So really swimmers certainly across the country, and really most of the globe, are relegated to dry land type of workouts, just trying to stay in the best out of water shape that they can. This is obviously not ideal, even 13 months out, 14 months out from 2021 Olympics. But at least we've got a feel for everybody being in the same, the playing field across the world is pretty level right now in terms of people being displaced from their facilities. It's certainly like that in the high profile swimming countries. Australia is shut down right now. Canada, most of the European countries right now are not able to use facilities and gyms. So at least the Americans know that there's no one out there that are getting a leg up. But this is getting back in shape will come quickly. And USA Swimming is constantly putting out. We were just on a big national team coaches call yesterday. They are definitely putting out a lot of education on what you can best be doing to be at your best in 15 or 16 months. So our USA Swimming is absolute. They're the best in the world in terms of how they treat and educate their athletes and coaches. So we've got that in our corner, which is awesome. But no, we're just, you got to stay in shape. Everybody knows what breaking a sweat feels like. Everybody knows what getting your heart rate up feels like. The specificity in terms of muscle movement through the water, that's hard to get out of the water. So there's certain, resistance bands, things like that you can do to help that. But really it's about just staying in great cardiovascular shape. And then we're going to have to really, really ease back into training to prevent injury and not be able to get into high volume training as quickly as we would want, or really any programs out there are going to want to in the fall.
Augie, you recruit internationally, and during this time period, of course, everybody is using the technology we are today, and that is Zoom or whatever it might be. Can we draw any advantages from that? Everyone's on the same level now. If you're going to recruit, this is the way it's going to go here for the next couple of months. Has that helped you at all in contacting some prospective athletes?
We do recruit internationally very heavily. They're all in the same situation, Brian. We've got some Israelis who are their Israeli national team has found them some water, but everybody's in the same situation. So, but maybe I didn't understand your question fully. I'm sorry.
Well, I guess just recruiting, the technology of recruiting right now.
Oh, right.
Changed. And so you're doing it on Zoom meetings or whatever it might be.
Oh,
and
right.
All coaches are doing that right now. And so I'm just wondering, has that eased at all your chance to communicate with a lot of these athletes?
So great. Yeah. Sorry. I was messing around on my phone. I got a text I was pushing. Yes. So we're communicating through Zoom, multiple, once a week, every Thursday is sort of the team call. And then we've got separate captains calls set up. We've got all our resource areas in the mix with our team, from academics to sports psych to nutrition, strength conditioning. All those areas are communicating on those calls on a weekly basis. It's challenging. We can't send workouts to anyone. That's an NCAA legislation right now. We can't send any workouts. Strength conditioning can kind of put on our Bridge app, stuff for them to do, but it's very limited. And we're trying to spice up communications with them, trying to come up with ideas. I'm trying to line up some guest speakers, alumni, things like that to inspire them, keep them motivated, trying to do like games and trivia, things like that. We're doing like a book club type of deal with our team, where we're kind of reading the same book and sort of, kind of summarizing 1 or 2 chapters every week. So we're just trying to be as creative as possible, but it's difficult.
Yeah, I know it's a challenge, but as they say, we're all in this together. Augie, you've obviously got the program on the upswing right now, and you mentioned a chance, hopefully, to compete for a national championship come next season. When you set goals for your team, is that where you start at the top there? And especially now, as you said, with the rapid improvement of the program.
Well, we're improving, but honestly, we're still a ways off of competing for an NCAA championship. I believe our men next year will be, conservatively, I think we can get back into the top 10 for the first time in 7 or 8 years, I think, as a program. The women are doing great as well. We're just focused on kind of moving up the conference ladder, which is the best conference in the country by far on the women's side, Pac-12 women's swimming and diving. So really where my goals rest in true Frank Busch fashion is to always is to pay attention to the team culture, and just always have that in a good, positive, competitive place, standing on the identities of hard work and being great teammates to each other, a competitive edge in everything that we do, including every practice. It's real. My goals really are in sort of the daily, keeping the culture in a great place, and knowing what our team identities are. And I really don't talk a lot about placings. We never talked this year about the men finishing second in the country. We never told them how long it had been since the program had finished second in the country. I just know that if I can, I learned from the best in terms of how to promote great team culture and get men and women to want to buy into this sort of ideal of wanting to inspire each other by their work ethic, by their attitude, but really lighting each other up with their performances. So that's where I keep my focus. And I just, I saw it firsthand. When you keep your focus on those things, then the ultimate prizes will come. But that still is a ways away.
All right, Augie, best of luck. Our best to the Busch family, and we'll hope to see everybody back together soon.
Thanks a lot, Brian. I appreciate this. Take care.
Augie Busch, head swimming and diving coach at the U of A. That's our Bear Down with Brian Jeffries for this week. We'll see you again soon.
That's great.
All right.
Thank you, Brian.